DITRH was a flat earth channel that I took on last year. Here's a little clip as a reminder. No, because the Earth doesn't spin that fast. Plus, there isn't a giant ball underneath us. Again, our angular velocity. The guy that runs it is called David Weiss, and he also runs and produces the Flat Earth podcast. He is up there as one of Flat Earth's most important proponents, and he's now teamed up with a YouTuber that has an immense following. That's right, Owen Benjamin. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Flat Earth Friday with me, Simon Dan. Thank you very much for joining me. If you've watched for a while, you'll already remember that we took on Owen Benjamin before in a Tinfoil Tuesday episode regarding his absolute disdain for evolution. Last month, DITRH posted a video on Owen called Not a Spinning Ball. Whilst he hasn't confirmed that he's a flat earther, it appears that Owen has now gone full globe denier and in this video embarks on an anti-globe rant. Let's put him back in his box.
Okay, let's talk. I'll help remove your pain with some love, okay?
Okay.
There's 9 planets, right? According to Neil deGrasse Tyson, the alleged rapist.
Putting all that aside, when it comes to planets, he'll tell you there are 8, not 9. Pluto is a dwarf planet.
They're all spinning in the same direction. You know the odds of that? 2 to the 9th power. 1 in 512.
Normally, I love probability stuff, but on this occasion, I don't think that's the best way to look at it. Now, that works for coin spins, for example, 9 heads in a row. But for that to work here, you would need to imply that every single planet formed independently from others at different times and started orbiting the Sun separately. This is not how they formed though. The planets all formed from leftover material from the Sun's creation. Now, if you know anything about the formation of stars, you will already know that under the influence of gravity, material would already be rotating when a protostar forms. That leftover material, known as an accretion disk, would then have gone on to form the planets. Material that would have already been orbiting the Sun.
That's very rare. And by the way, during this conversation, do not say it was God's will. Because if you use God, you have to read the Bible. And the Bible does not depict the Earth as a spinning ball in a sea of nothing at all. So you can't have it both ways, guys. You can't have a firmament, 4 corners. God sits up and looks at us like grasshoppers. You can't have that and a spinning ball and nothing. Okay, listen. Just please listen, because it's impossible.
Okay, no problem. I'm on the spinning ball and nothing side anyway.
All right, next up on the solar system model, it's on a flat plane.
Except it's not. Well, not all of it. The 8 planets we've mentioned already do indeed orbit on an almost identical plane. Solid evidence, by the way, that they all formed from the accretion disk that we mentioned earlier. However, Pluto doesn't. It orbits on a plane inclined at an angle of 17 degrees. Also, the whole solar system is surrounded by a shell of ice, rock and dust called the Oort cloud. Kind of puts the brakes on that theory, hey Owen?
Not just is the solar system a flat plane, the entire Milky Way galaxy is a flat plane.
Actually, whilst there is a flat disk shape to our galaxy, new evidence suggests that the edges of the Milky Way are severely warped and take on more of an elongated S shape. You've also got a central region of stars that is like a bulge, as well as some globular clusters which are not occupied in the disk.
Want to talk about flat Earth? Oh, flat earthers. You're saying that after a Big Bang, even with the law of thermodynamics called entropy, which we'll get to in a second, somehow our galaxy ended up being a perfectly flat plane where all the planets spin in the same direction. The odds of that are less than winning the Mega Lotto every single day for thousands of years.
Now he's just making odds up without actually understanding anything about galaxy formation.
Understand that. Now look at the moon. The moon is a perfect circle. The odds that happened after Big Bang and just chaos of atoms and particles and dust and rocks colliding is 0.
I would agree, because it didn't form at the Big Bang. Also, the moon isn't perfectly spherical. There is a deviation in radii value, just like there is here on Earth, and actually the side facing us is slightly larger than the side facing away from us. The difference is very small, but very real.
The odds are literally zero. There's no force, there's no wind, there's no erosion, there's no water, there's no force acting upon that moon that would make it a perfect sphere.
Well, not a perfect sphere, but gravity maybe?
Next up, why are the craters all perfect spheres? The way asteroids hit, side angle, we've never witnessed an asteroid, okay?
Our survey said...
They aren't. Here are at least 3 examples from the video I did on Spacebusters. That is tragically embarrassing, but in case you weren't sure, here's a picture of another one. And another one. And another one.
The odds that the spin of the moon is exactly the same speed as it rotates around the Earth, again, are zero. If it was 1/4 of 1 mile per hour different, it would slowly turn.
Given the huge amount of time that's passed, it's really not hard to see how this could happen with a body like the moon.
The fact it doesn't, and there is zero physics explanations with the model of gravity as we know it to explain why the moon, why its axis rotation is exactly matching it rotate around us so that we only see one side.
Our survey said...
Really? 0 explanations? Have you even bothered to try and look it up? Since the moon's formation, the Earth and the moon have been gravitationally bound to each other. When it first formed, the moon was rotating very fast. Over time, the Earth's gravitational pull has slowed that rotation down until it became locked in place. All you need is a vast amount of time. It's even working the other way round. The moon is slowing the Earth, but the amount of time required to lock the Earth in place is huge.
Light being shined upon a sphere does not make the luminescence the same all the way across. You can do a test with a tennis ball and a flashlight. It's impossible. It can't happen. It only happens on 2-dimensional objects. Seeing as you've only seen one side of the moon because of its miraculous rotation and its perfect circle, and the fact that the luminescence is the same across the whole thing, implies, I'm not stating this, it implies it's a 2-dimensional object.
Does it though? Or are we not understanding something again, Owen?
A lot more than it's a spinning sphere out of the chaos of the Big Bang. Okay? The size and weight of the moon, according to science, it is impossible for it to be rotating around our Earth. The way the moon was created, according to mainstream science, is that an object the size of Mars hit our Earth and created the moon. That's nonsense. We would have rings like Saturn. Where's all the dust? Where's all the debris? Where's everything? That all just disappeared?
It's in the moon? There probably was rings to begin with, but our old friend gravity meant that the material coalesced to form the moon over tens of millions of years.
That makes no sense at all. Next up, the sun is 400 times bigger and miraculously 400 times farther away than the moon. And like 2 machine-cut quarters, they line up perfectly to make an eclipse. The odds of that are 1 in trillions times 1 in trillions times 1 in trillions. It's not possible.
Except they don't always line up. This is a picture of an annular eclipse and occurs when the moon is slightly further away in its orbit of us.
That the perfect circles in this world, which can't happen on the moon given the existing model, line up perfectly with something 400 times larger from a third factor, which is your fixed position on an Earth, that they claim is spinning 1,000 miles an hour.
Well, angular speed is what matters here.
A 15-degree-per-hour drift.
Thanks, Bob. Yes, which is 15 degrees per hour.
Okay, the shadow of the eclipse is 70 miles wide. There is no way to make a shadow smaller than the object.
Our survey said...
Just saying.
Of course, there are people that say umbra because, like goats, they've been trained to say that, but they cannot recreate an umbra on Earth. They only believe it because they've been indoctrinated to believe it since the time of their birth by people who want to remove their connection to God.
I don't think that science's MO. It's certainly not mine. I think that's just an excuse.
Okay, next up, evolution. So we have something called the Big Bang, which is the ultimate chaotic event. What banged? Who banged it? Why did it bang? How did everything come from a fixed point? Don't even try and tackle that because it makes zero sense. But here's something that you can easily think of, and it disproves everything about mainstream science. The law of entropy is that matter and energy naturally go from order to chaos.
Okay, so you're going to use something from mainstream science to disprove all of mainstream science. Makes perfect sense.
If you break a glass, even after 1 billion years, the broken shards will not reform into the glass because objects have a tendency towards entropy, towards dissolving, towards breaking apart. Whether it's empires or a broken glass, the longer you wait, the more the broken shards become sand. They get ground down, they will never go the other direction. So how do we have a human eyeball from a Big Bang? The Big Bang happens and it creates a never-ending waterfall, cascade, domino effect of atoms smashing against each other in an empty darkness for eternity. So given the law of entropy that things go from order to chaos, how on earth do we have the structure of a human eyeball in which we can see light and then recreate the light in our minds as images that represent our physical reality?
Evolution, Owen. Took about 9 billion years for the sun and earth to form. Then about 1 billion years later, life came along. Then about 3.5 billion years later, humans appeared. And then 2 million years after that, here we are. Eyes and all.
It contradicts to a point of laughable mockery. Okay, now understand that if anyone says, well, sexual selection, Big Bear, over long periods of time, I used to believe this stuff too. I believed all of it. I loved astronomy. I minored in evolution in college. I loved thinking about how the environment would interact with a human being, increase their odds of procreation or decrease their odds of procreation, and certain genes would pass. Nonsense. You're telling me that force that created the human eyeball, which is unbelievably complicated, that through a long process of light hitting cells and then becoming rods and cones, if that's from sexual selection, why does our skin burn in the sun?
Whilst there is evidence to suggest that sexual selection has influence over eye colour, I wouldn't say that it's responsible for eyes themselves. Our skin burns in the sun because of UV radiation, and actually, as a species, we have evolved a sunscreen, melanin. There are a variety of skin tones amongst humans, and the further away from the equator you get, the lighter the skin tone. That is a direct consequence of our exposure to the sun.
Why do I need an umbrella right now so that my skin doesn't become red and cancerous? Well, Big Bear, it's because you're from the north. Why don't I have hair on my body? Why would I die outside in 30-degree weather without a structure around me? If my people came from Northern Europe, which they did for so long, how come I didn't evolve to not die in the snow?
We do protect ourselves from the cold. It's called clothing and central heating. We protect ourselves with technology. Why would we then evolve for extreme cold when we already have done this?
And then die in the sun. If sexual selection actually had an impact on us, like they say it did, if we can evolve to have the complexity of a human eyeball out of a Big Bang, even though that goes against entropy, why on earth have we evolved to not have skin that's resistant to the one constant in our life at all times, which is the sun and then the winter? It doesn't make any sense, right?
As I've said many times before, personal incredulity does not mean that something can't happen.
So what is the point of all of this? Is this supposed to give you despair and fear? No, it's removing it. We were created. That glass that was broken was a glass because someone made it. So someone made us to have eyes to see, ears to hear, a mouth to taste, hands to touch, a woman to love, a child to hold, right?
Well, if that truly is the case, why would you create an optical device that is wired backwards? A problem which exists among all vertebrates, by the way. And why would this optical device be so susceptible to problems? I would be pretty bummed if I created that, personally. Owen spends the next 2 minutes basically preaching, so we'll move on to the end of the video.
The purpose of your life is to have gratitude and purpose and serve God, that which made you. That science didn't give you eyes.
Hello, science? Yeah. I'd like some eyes, please. Let's go with blue. Yeah. Can I have them 20/20 vision guaranteed for life, please? Thank you. Mine? Yeah, I've got the old brown 82 model with glint. How much? Okay. Have you got anything a bit cheaper? Cataracts by 40 and corrected vision required. Ah, go on then. That'll do.
Random over a billion years didn't give you ears.
Hi, is that random? Hey, I'd like some ears, please. Hello? Right, that wraps up today's video. I think we have safely dispatched Owen regarding his globe doubts. His rant was embedded with personal incredulity, rubbish research and fake facts. Poor form all over. Maybe I should do a rant one day. Thank you all very much for watching today. It is truly appreciated. If you liked it, then please do like and subscribe. I have been Simon Dan. Have yourselves a great weekend, and I'll see you Tuesday, where Owen again takes on the moon. See you then.